and I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out. Hey, everybody, thanks so much for joining us right here on The Right View. Before we get started tonight, let's start with a few videos. Let's see what's going on out there, and let's talk about it a little bit. Here we go.
Well, thank you for the question. It's transition2025.com. And, you know, there were a few months ago where I told supporters across the city to stop donating. And today I am asking them to start once again. And I am asking them to do so because of the fact that a transition that can meet the moment of preparing for January 1st is one that will require staff, it will require research, it will require infrastructure. And those are things that we will have to provide. And I'm excited for the fact that it will be funded by the very people who brought us to this point, the working people who have been left behind by the politics of the city.
Oh, so funding does matter. Money does matter. You got to fund stuff. Oh, so now Mom Donnie understands that. Wait a minute. I thought everything was free. Why doesn't he just get it all for free? If that's what this guy's all about, just do it for free. I don't know why even bother with asking people to fund anything. What this guy's quickly figuring out is that nothing is free, that everything costs something, that to get anything accomplished, you got to make money, you got to have money, you got to spend money. It sounds good to say you're going to use everybody else's, but yeah, he needs funding. Imagine that. It's already starting. See, it's already starting. This is just the beginning. Just wait, everybody. This is only the beginning. More to come.
And they're going to recommend
that
the number of Supreme Court justices go from 9 to 13. That's going to happen, people. That's going to happen to you. They're going to win. They're going to do some blue ribbon panel of distinguished jurists, and they are going to recommend 13 and a Democratic Senate and House. They're going to pass it, and the Democratic president is going to sign it because they have to do an intervention so we can have a Supreme Court that the American people trust again. So just keep that in the back of your mind. And I would bet a lot of money that that's what's going to happen.
Wow. James Carville is saying the quiet part out loud. Yeah. And guess who else has said that this is going to happen? President Donald J. Trump has talked about this extensively, which is why he wanted Thune to eliminate the filibuster, the Republicans to get rid of the filibuster, to obviously reopen and fund the government, but also to ensure that we get a jump on what we already know is going to happen. He's exactly right. They want to pack the Supreme Court. Forget the 9. They want to put 13 in, and they want to ensure that they get judicial win after judicial win. The only thing that has actually kept things rather even keeled in the first, not even full year of President Trump's second term in office has been the United States Supreme Court. Think about all of these judges that were appointed by Obama around the country, these activist judges who have tried to thwart the will of the people, stop the president's agenda. They've tried every way they possibly can, and it ends up back at the Supreme Court at the end of the day, a lot of these cases. And the Supreme Court is finally the voice of reason to say, hey, enough, guys. Like, you got to stop this. This doesn't work. The president has full authority to do this. Not after what the Democrats want to do. They want to get rid of that idea. They want to make sure that they have full rule of everything from the judicial branch to the legislative branch, because they want to make D.C. and Puerto Rico states, and that's going to give them control of the House and Senate in perpetuity. And then they think, well, they're also going to vote for the presidency, so we'll just have a Democrat president, a Democrat House, a Democrat Senate, and a Democrat Supreme Court. Imagine the disaster. I agree. James Carville is exactly right. That's been the plan all along. And kind of shame on the Republicans for not taking this moment to do the right thing. Leader Thune, maybe you should have thought of that. I don't know.
So he was in a good place to make whatever decision, the top of his game. Such a consequential president of the United States, a Mount Rushmore kind of president of the United States. Want to know what comes next?
That he belongs up there on Mount Rushmore. Lincoln and Joe Biden.
But you got Teddy Roosevelt up there, and he's wonderful. I don't say take him down, but you can add Biden.
What does Teddy Roosevelt have to do with anything? Listen, we're done with Nancy. This is over. That should tell you the amount of hot air coming out of that lady. Anyone who would have the gall to go on national television and say Joe Biden deserves to be on Mount Rushmore? Are you kidding me, Nancy? Okay, if she can name 5 great accomplishments of Joe Biden, just 5, Nancy, then maybe they should consider it. You know what? You can't name 1. So don't even try it. That is the craziest thing I've ever heard. Joe Biden is arguably the worst president this country has ever had. Who even knows how much he was aware of that was going on? We know some of the calls he made, like exiting from Afghanistan that got 13 service members killed, that put our country in a horrible spot, that allowed a terrorist cell to reemerge there in the Middle East. We remember that vividly. I remember the open southern border, the tens of millions of illegal immigrants who flowed into the country. President Trump, of course, called it an invasion. That's exactly what it was. You know what came over? Not just people looking for a new life, gangs, drug cartels, human traffickers. Disaster ensued because of it. Ask the people of Aurora, Colorado, how it went whenever one of the gangs, a Venezuelan gang, took over apartment complexes. Ask them about that. How is it for the families of people, 100,000 a year, who were killed via fentanyl poisoning? Thank the drug cartels for that. They all came up through the southern border. The inflation that was sky high, the way our country was no longer independent. We were energy dependent on other countries. You had wars starting under Joe Biden. Nancy, are you nuts? I think we know the answer to that. That's the most outrageous claim I have ever heard. I recently went to Mount Rushmore. There is an extra spot up there, but I'll tell you, the only president of my lifetime who deserves to have his face on Mount Rushmore is Donald J. Trump. Oh, okay.
Can you tell me what category of fat I fit in?
So it's based on your shirt size. So if you are a 1 or 2X, you are small fat. 3 to 4X, you are mid fat. 5 to 6X, you are super fat. Is based on what level of privilege you have in the world. So someone in a small fat category may not struggle getting on an airplane, but someone in a mid fat or super fat may not be able to use even the airplane extender. So that's where that comes in, and like the privilege levels of like what fat means to different people.
Okay, should I even ask how any of these individuals vote? I don't think I need to. I think we know. You know what makes me sad about this is that people have been so led astray. I mean, we're talking about privilege, your fat privilege, your whatever that is. Can we just all be healthy? I'm sorry. There's nothing about any of that I find healthy or in any way positive for the future of this country. Those are young people there. Okay, none of that seems like it's a great trajectory. If you have to categorize yourself like that, I think we've gone a step too far. I'm going to suggest getting on the MAHA train, get on the MAHA agenda, Make America Healthy Again agenda. We're trying to eliminate that kind of craziness and nonsense. And I feel sad for those people because somebody told them that was the way to be. That was acceptable. That's how if you are a 1 or 2 fat, whatever that was, your privilege. It's crazy. That's crazy people stuff. But again, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that I know they probably did not vote for President Donald Trump. And therefore, maybe they aren't on the MAHA train, but I digress. All right, well, let's continue on with this evening. Tonight, we're joined by Editor-in-Chief of the Post Millennial, Libby Emmons, as well as former RNC National Spokesperson, Elizabeth Pipko. Ladies, welcome back. Obviously, shutdown, at least the Senate so far, Libby, has finally voted to end it. It was 41 days. There were hundreds of thousands of people who were put out of work. Air travel has been an absolute nightmare, and sadly, I think it's only getting worse. Hardship for people receiving benefits from the government, and it's slowed our economic growth here in America. But hey, the Democrats did it to prove a point or something against Donald Trump. We don't really know. The 8 Democrats who came over and joined Republicans in wanting to refund and reopen the government, Shaheen, Cortez Masto, Durbin, Fetterman, who voted every time for it, Hassan, Kane, King, and Rosen. I would say a big finally applause to these 8 individuals, although it took 6 of them a lot longer to come on over. What is your prediction, Libby? Do you think we're going to have the House vote to reopen now that finally we've gotten something done with the Senate? And also your read on how bad Chuck Schumer looks at the end of this whole fiasco.
Yeah, so I do think that the House is probably going to vote for it. They're going to let this all go through because we've seen Republicans just fall down this entire time and just make a mess of everything. Democrats pushed the shutdown forward. They voted for the shutdown every time, but Republicans could have ended it. They could have terminated the filibuster. They could have taken this opportunity to push through the entire GOP and Trump agenda, from voting integrity to illegal immigration to everything else, everything that the American people voted for last year. And instead they spent their whole time worrying about what Democrats are going to do when they take power next time. The Democrats already keep taking power. Like, come on, you guys. What are you, fools? Just complete fools. I hate that they didn't do that they didn't take advantage of this opportunity. We voted for them for a reason, and they're just like, oh, but the Democrats they're going to take charge, and then they're going to do a Marxist march across America. You mean like the one that they're already doing? Okay, great job, guys. Thanks. Fetterman has come out as literally the only centrist Democrat in the entire country. And I'm glad that he ended up in office because he's really the only man who makes sense on the entire Democratic side at any given point. Chuck Schumer is a floundering fool. He is a moron. He has been pushed all the way to the left by the far left of his party, even though his job was to stand up for the people of New York and New York City. He has not done that. He's letting the city fall to ruin. The state is a disaster under Kathy Hochul. We're about to see how bad it can get in New York City. AOC is going to take his seat, and she's been pulling his chain this whole time. So I think the Democrats are a disaster, and I think the Republicans have facilitated it, and they really should have taken advantage of this opportunity, like the Democrats did, to get their elections through and everything else they wanted just by waiting and delaying.
Yeah. Well, by the way, President Trump has talked about the fact that when the Democrats get the opportunity, God forbid they do, Liz, they're going to eliminate the filibuster themselves. They're going to go ahead and push through D.C. and Puerto Rico as states. They're going to pack the Supreme Court. Look, 49 Democrats already previously voted on this, I believe, and the ones who didn't are no longer in the Senate. So it's pretty clear this is the direction they're going. President Trump warned about this, and to Libby's point, he wanted the Republicans, he wanted Thune to say, okay, enough is enough. Let's stop this here. Let's eliminate the pain that everyone is feeling around the country because of this shutdown. But let's also score some wins for the country over the next 3 years, because we know that these midterms are coming up next year. We know that the Democrats are going to do everything they can to try and gain back some seats, certainly in the House, coming up next year. But we have an opportunity at hand right now, probably like we're never going to get again, with a president as forward-thinking as President Trump, as bold as President Trump, with ideas that obviously work and are impacting us every day. Let's take the wins and let's score some big points here. Do you agree with Libby, Liz? Would you have liked to have seen the Republicans say at some point, okay, let's get rid of this filibuster and move on with life and take some wins?
Yeah, I mean, look, at what point is it enough, right? I mean, if you wrote to keep the government shut down 15 times and you continue to scream about Donald Trump on TV and make stuff up and, try to do whatever you can to have enough leverage to win a few elections in blue states, by the way, where you're going to win anyway, but to rally up your psycho base that's so radical they'll only come out if you're literally just taking on Donald Trump and nothing else. I mean, I guess it works for them, but Libby made a point too, like, don't forget, if they have the power, when they have the power, they go all in, right? They imprison their political opponents. They kick them off ballots. They go after their supporters. They go after their families. They do it all Soviet Union style. So the fact that we can't just be like normal Republicans who are like, hey, guess what? The American people voted us in a mandate in every single swing state and asked for this, so we're going to deliver for them. I think it's a little ridiculous. And let's not forget, the main reason the shutdown was even more ridiculous is that the Democrats literally lost this election last year. The American people said, we don't want you, we don't want your agenda, we don't want your policies, and they decided instead to hold the government hostage over the these very policies that the American people rejected just a year ago. They are selfish, they are hypocrites, they do not care about the people who put them in the positions that they have. They only care about taking on Donald Trump, knowing he's probably not on the ballot in 2028 anyway, and none of this matters. But it's pathetic, and I wish we got a little bit stronger, and I wish everybody realized that it wasn't just Donald Trump who was taken on by the Democrats and put through absolute hell and back. It was all of us, and they will do it again when they're back in power.
I like that you said that Donald Trump's not likely to be on the ballot in 2020.
You never know.
The Democrats love to hear that sort of thing. But you both made a point about the wins last Tuesday, right? These were blue states. Virginia and New Jersey are blue. Did we have a couple of flukes here and there? Yes. Did they both trend redder over the last election? Yes. But the whole point of this government shutdown, the whole point of the Democrats sticking to their guns here and not reopening and the whole thing, part of it was a play to ensure that their base turned out. You're exactly right, Liz. And they were successful at that. One of the scariest parts of last Tuesday, of course, was the election of Zohran Mamdani, a socialist communist who is now going to be the next mayor of New York City. And it actually scares the pants off of me, Libby, whenever I hear Alex Soros, son of George Soros, praise him, because these are not people we want doing anything, having anything to do with any functioning of our country, because they're bad, evil people, and they just perpetuate misery and chaos wherever they can. Here's what he said. He posted on X, "So proud to be a New Yorker. The American dream continues." Libby, this is what he said about Mamdani's win. Well, what kind of American dream is that? That is I've never heard of this one, where you are anti-Semitic, where you put down the cops, where you want to defund the police, bring in social workers, make your city less safe, government run everything, free everything, running out the top, 1% of earners in the city, the ones who pay the bulk of the taxes to fund all of this stuff. That's not America. That's not the American dream. That's the USSR dream, circa communism. President Trump has said that George and Alex Soros should be prosecuted under the RICO Act. And this is, of course, due to their support for these violent protests that we've seen all across the country, whether the ICE protests as of late or the Summer of Love riots back during 2020. So do you think, Olivia, is this the American dream, Mamdani becoming New York City's next mayor?
No, I think it is definitely not the American dream. And he said as much in his victory speech that night when he claimed victory. He thanked Uzbek nurses and Trinidadian whoever and a bunch of cab drivers who are also not from America. And in his speech, he talked about single moms. He talked about grandparents. I'll tell you who he did not talk about. He did not talk about fathers. He did not talk about families. He didn't mention these words once. He did not talk about America, not the nation that he became a citizen of less than 8 years ago. He did not talk about Americans. He did not talk about native-born New Yorkers, the majority of whom completely and entirely reject these proposals that he has. And he did not talk about American citizens at all. And he did not talk about any ethnic group that could contain within it any white people at all. He just mentioned everyone else, because his plan is to turn New York City into a foreign place for everyone else that is not for America, that is not for New Yorkers. And I think that it's really, really important to recognize that. He doesn't believe in America. He doesn't believe in New York City. He believes in power, and he believes in maintaining that power. He believes in, taxing the 123 billionaires in the city, which is the most billionaires in any city in the world, to the point where they can just go live in their other homes and pick their other homes to be their primary residences. They won't have to pay it, and they'll still be able to hang out in the city. I think it's really, really damaging. And I don't know how New Yorkers voted for this, except that the majority of the New Yorkers who voted for this are foreign-born New Yorkers or transplants to the city. It's not actual New Yorkers who voted this man into office. And these are people who don't have deep roots in the city and can leave at any time. I think of New York. I lived in New York most of my adult life. It's my ancestral homeland. My immigrant ancestors came to New York over 100 years ago, and they grew up there. They started businesses there. They, created their families there. And I don't think that New York City is going to be a place for Americans in the very near future.
It's really scary. And, usually, Liz, whenever someone wins an election, they want to bring everyone together. I think back to, I'll say, the early hours of November 9th, 2016, when Donald Trump shocked the world and won the election that we knew he should win, that there was enthusiasm out there that the polls weren't picking up. But what I always look back to is what he said in that moment. And he essentially said, I don't want to just be a president for the people who voted for me. I'm going to be a president for everyone. And now is a time for our country to come back together. I want to heal the wounds that have been created over the course of this election. That's what you want to hear from someone who is a leader. But it seems like Mom Donnie did the different path. He basically got out in front of the cameras after the win and sounded very, it was a lot darker, I think, than we'd heard him speak. He sounded a little threatening. He certainly sounded threatening towards Donald Trump. And whenever you talk about safety in the city, in the weeks leading up to his win, which looked inevitable, you saw the polling, we saw that he was beating every other candidate handily. You had 250 NYPD officers resign in the weeks leading up to his election. And whenever you talk to the folks at the NYPD, they say morale is down because everyone is concerned about the policies Mom Donnie wants to put in place. You have a person who's supposed to be running New York City who does not believe in law enforcement. Every single month, they say they're losing more and more officers. We've seen people resign. I think there was a fire chief who resigned as well because he was Jewish. This is the beginning of something very, very frightening happening in New York City. If this guy is only there to represent the people who voted for him, as it would seem based on his victory speech, if you have the best and the brightest of the NYPD resigning because they don't want to serve under this guy, where does that leave New York, Liz? We knew this was probably going to happen, but now that it's happened, it's really frightening.
It is, and like you said, we called it. We talked about it here on the show. We said this was probably going to happen. It's sad, but also the irony is not lost on me. You asked Libby, is this the American dream? It kind of is. It's pathetic that he immigrated to this country and became mayor of one of the greatest cities in the world, and he didn't thank America, because that is the American dream. This is the only country where your ideas and your hard work can make you a mayor like that, and it doesn't matter where you come from, what nation you come from, what language you speak, or what you believe, and if you get people to support you and you work your butt off, you can become anything in America. And to think that he didn't literally thank America, knowing that it was only possible here, knowing he left Uganda for a reason, knowing so many people like my own parents come here for a reason and thank America in almost every single sentence that they speak when they talk about their life. It was actually shocking that he didn't. And you said, it was a really scary speech. I think Van Jones said it that night on CNN. He said, this is not the Mom Donnie I expected to see, not that smile that he's so famous for, that charming smile. This is somebody else. And he didn't waste any time in becoming that somebody else and letting people know who he stood for. He didn't mention that those cab drivers and those nurses all fled probably to come here because America is the greatest place on earth, and he's running for them as if they didn't stand up and come here and risk it all because they loved America. It's very strange. It's very ironic. It's very sad. And again, when you see, the best and the brightest, the people that risk everything every day to protect us, when you see NYPD officers saying they're not going to serve under someone like that, it is very scary. I've seen New York change the last few years. I've seen less and less officers on the street, but also morale. You mentioned morale is important. They get up and risk their life every single day, and if they don't want to do that, if they don't feel like they're being respected, they're going to stop. They're going to quit, or they're going to leave to another city somewhere else in America where they are respected like they should be, because they're police officers and they're law enforcement officers, and they do literally the toughest job in the country and get nothing for it. In fact, they get spit on for it in New York City. So I think it's disgraceful. I think it's so sad. And again, his mask slipped off really a few minutes after winning. I don't think he even cared to keep it on any longer. It's sad people didn't see it coming, but maybe it's the lesson that New Yorkers have to learn the hard way.
Right now in Ukraine, elderly Jews are trapped in unbearable poverty. Galina is a 96-year-old Holocaust survivor who has spent her entire life in the same village. She's sick, alone, and facing another bitterly cold winter. Today, like every day, she must decide whether to spend what little money she has on food, medication, or heating. No one should have to live like this. But for Galina and so many others, this is the harsh reality. Through the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews and your generous donations, you can bring hope to those in need. Your gift of just $25 will help provide a food box packed full of life-saving essentials that will help feed someone struggling to survive. Don't delay. Your gift today will help provide the life-saving food and hope that Galena and so many like her so desperately need. Visit urgentifcj.org. That's one word, urgentifcj.org, or call 866-338-IFCJ. That's 866-338-4325. Looking for a new movie to see during the holiday season? You should watch Karen Kingsbury's The Christmas Ring. It's in theaters now, but don't wait, because independent films like this only stay in the theaters if you go see the movie. Starring the incredible Jana Kramer as a brave Gold Star widow, Benjamin Hollingsworth as a charming antique dealer, and the legendary Kelsey Grammer. This heartfelt story, based on Karen Kingsbury's brand new best-selling novel, is all about love, loss, second chances, and the real meaning of Christmas. What makes the Christmas Ring movie even better? Karen honored our brave American heroes by casting 100 actual active duty and retired military members, including a remarkable 102-year-old World War II veteran. This love story is in theaters right now, and it's a beautiful tribute to the sacrifices our veterans and their families make every single day. Grab your loved ones, head to the theater, and ring in the holiday season with The Christmas Ring. You don't want to miss it. Get your tickets today at thechristmasringmovie.com. That's thechristmasringmovie.com. Well, and I do think that there will be lessons learned here. Look, you talked about the majority of the people, Libby, who voted this guy in were New York transplants. They lived in New York for a very short amount of time. These are not lifelong New Yorkers. Most of these people had lived there like less than 5 years who voted for him. And a majority of people who voted for him, according to the exit polls, were young women. These are like 30 and under women who, to Liz's point, they see this smile. This guy seems very charming. Oh, I like these ideas. I'm going to vote based on emotion and not actual information, which is likely what a lot of these people did. They don't really understand how any of this works, and they went with the guy that they found to be the most charming. You posted something, though, on X, Libby, and I want you to expand on it. Mom Donnie promised in February to confiscate privately owned buildings if landlords don't pay excessive fines or make assessed repairs. He says he'll do it on day one. That's the day one promise of Mom Donnie. So what is that going to look like? What's that going to do to New York City, do you think?
Yeah, so he has a lot of crazy ideas about how private property works, and this is one of them. In February 2024, leading up to the Democratic primary, this was a post that he put up where he said that landlords, he has this big thing about bad landlords, and sure, New York City has a lot of buildings, and it's not easy to upkeep those buildings. It has high property taxes, it has all the rest of it. So what his plan is if a building, a tenant-occupied building, has a lot of assessments, maybe not even a tenant-occupied building, but has a lot of assessments, repair orders in that have not been completed, and the landlord has not paid fines because these repairs have not been completed, his plan is for the city to commandeer that building, to take that building from the person who owns it and run that building themselves. Of course, the city will then be accountable to the city for whether or not they make those repairs, and the city will not have to pay the city any assessed fines or anything like that. And when the tenants go complain to the city about the city won't have to do anything about it at all, because the city will be in charge, and everyone will just live in public housing. And this is actually pretty terrible, because if you look at NYCHA, which is the public housing in New York City, it is in incredibly bad repair. And what did Mom Donnie promise about NYCHA? He promised to change the light bulbs in the hallways where there are lights out in the hallways. Now, this is really not the same thing as massive assessed repairs. You know, anyone who's ever played Monopoly, you land on building assessments, you know it's a huge problem. You're probably going to go become bankrupt. You know, your grandfather's going to win the whole pot, like he always did in our family. But this is what's going on. Mom Donnie doesn't care about private property. He doesn't care that these people own these buildings, and he certainly doesn't care about whatever struggles landlords have had to maintain the buildings. Buildings are old in New York City. It's not easy to maintain them. Property taxes are ridiculous, and the way that the laws work in the city are crazy too. I mean, you can You can own a condo in a building where the condo association doesn't own the land the building is on. That's kind of crazy, right? I mean, there's so many wild things going on with property in New York City. And also he has these plans for rent stabilization that are pretty untenable as well. The rent stabilization board is landlords and tenants working together to come up with a percentage. And that's what they do. The city doesn't control that. But I think it's very scary for anyone who owns property in New York City, whether it's a building or a home, the private home, you're in trouble under this administration.
Yeah, it sounds a little communist. Just come in and take private property if you deem it, necessary, quote unquote, for the greater good. By the way, speaking of NYCHA, our good friend Lynn Patton, who worked initially for HUD Secretary Ben Carson during Donald Trump's first administration, went on to work for NYCHA. And you know what Lynn did? Maybe Mom Donnie wants to take a page from her. She actually went in and spent a week staying in different NYCHA housing, like buildings that they run in different parts of New York City, to see herself what things were, necessary, what was going on, the problems that these residents faced. It's more than just light bulbs. I can assure you of that. You can talk to Lynn about that. One of the things that Bill Maher said recently about this whole Mom Donnie vote, Liz, and I agree with him 100% on this, is he said every Democrat should be questioned as to whether or not they align with Mom Donnie. And I think the reason he's saying this is because it's a very slippery slope the Democrats are on right now. This is where the energy in the party is. It's in the far, far left radical wing of the party. We just talked about what an absolute abysmal failure Chuck Schumer has been. That's the old guard. We're going to talk in a minute about a goodbye to Nancy Pelosi, who is also the old guard. These people are leaving. And I want to know, as an American, where does the Democrat Party, where's the other major political party in America, stand on this guy, on these kind of policies we're discussing? It's interesting that a lot of people, Liz, like the Hakeem Jeffries of the world, didn't come out and say, I'm supporting Mom Donnie. They didn't say anything about it. So where does everyone stand? I think we need to hear from a lot of Democrats on him.
I agree, and I mean, you're right. Hakeem Jeffries, I think, did like a really, really cold endorsement of his, and then kind of said that he is not the future, and the future is going to be the moderates, and kind of, tiptoed around the line there, while Barack Obama did not endorse him. His team went out and lied, saying he didn't do local endorsements, which was not true.
They spoke on the phone, apparently.
Right, apparently. And then after that phone call, he still refused to endorse, which would tell everyone everything they need to know. Chuck Schumer refused to endorse, obviously. I mean, if you think about it, the Democrats are, if you watch really any mainstream network with any Democrats, even after their victories, by the way, in those elections last Tuesday, they don't know how to answer questions on Mom Donnie because they're so terrified to upset the wrong people in their base. At the same time, we are not wrong in saying this is the future because it's kind of all that they have. I remember in 2016 when Democrats fought tooth and nail to get rid of Bernie Sanders, and it was ironic because we on the campaign were watching Bernie and we were kind of comparing the support, and Bernie could fill an arena like Donald Trump could. Hillary actually couldn't, and we were confused as to what they were trying to do. Then they fought to get rid of him in 2020, and now ironically he's the only person in his old age and his horrible ideas, the only person that can still fill a stadium when it comes to Democrats. It's Bernie Sanders, it's AOC, it's Mom Donnie, it's people screaming about taxing the rich and making sure we have no billionaires left, and oligarchy, which they probably can't even translate or give a definition for. But the reality is that's all that they have. So I don't really know why they're trying to avoid the subject so much. When you look at who shows up to these rallies, they have like a hammer and sickle on their shirt. Yeah. They're screaming about socialism. They're wearing their keffiyehs. They're very proud of what they represent. And I think polling shows it's close to 40% of Democrats that openly say that they have a favorable view of socialism. So you can shy away from it on CNN, and they're even going to let you get away with that. But when it comes to the midterms, you can't. You're going to have to go out and say, I stand with this, or I don't stand with this. And it's funny watching the mental gymnastics, watching Hochul right now, for example, say she's happy Mom Donnie won, but none of his ideas are ever going to come to fruition. They don't know how to act or what to say because they're so scared. They're beholden to that tiny psycho base who tweets obnoxious things, but who isn't the majority. They don't know what to do if they lose their support, but they also don't want their support because they claim to be proud Americans. And it's a recipe for disaster, but it's a recipe for disaster for them. Everyone was saying we lost last Tuesday. I think we won because we showed the entire country what Democrats stand for, and it might have worked in a small election, of course, in blue states and blue cities. It's not going to work nationally, and no one's going to support this in the midterms.
Yeah, you got to pick a side, Libby. I think that's the thing. That's one of the things Donald Trump, if nothing else, should have taught people is that you need to know what you stand for, and you need to clarify that for the American people, for the people who, you want to represent, whether it's New York City, whether it's as a, congressman or woman, whether it's the United States Senate, whatever it is you're running for. You need to let those people who you want to vote for you know exactly who you are and exactly where you stand, because people don't like the flip-flopping. I think Liz is right on that. It really will be interesting as the next year progresses how Democrats are going to navigate these waters. We know, though, they're going to navigate it without one of everybody's favorites, Nancy Pelosi. Goodbye to Nancy. She is finally retiring. She's been serving in Congress since 1987. Not a second too soon, according to the president. He says the retirement of Nancy Pelosi is a great thing for America. The interesting thing to me is that the average salary for one of our members of Congress, if you're a House representative, is $174,000. Now, if you're Speaker of the House, apparently currently it's $223,500. Nancy Pelosi has a bank account with over $100 million in it. I would like to know, I think a lot of people, Libby, would like to know, how the heck did she get all that money? Some good trades, it would appear. And the other thing that I think is interesting, and maybe people should start considering, is the person who is likely to take her seat, a guy named Scott Weiner. Did we not learn our lesson with the Weiners of the past? Just saying. Here's what this guy stands for. If you think men don't belong in girls' bathrooms, kids shouldn't get irreversible sex changes, or cops should stop street prostitution of minors, Scott Weiner probably thinks you're a bigot, Libby. Like Zoran Mamdani, Scott Weiner is the frightening face of a new Democrat party in which letting children get transgender surgeries is just the tip of the iceberg. From letting the state take gay kids away from their parents to legalizing pedophilia, Weiner makes even the most radical members of Congress look like moderates. This is who is likely going to be the representative taking over for Nancy Pelosi. What you think, Libby?
Yeah, Scott Weiner is someone we've been covering at the Post Millennial for a long time. He goes out in pride parades wearing bondage gear. He advocates for these Folsom Street pride parties where grown men lie in kiddie pools and they pee on each other. And this is something, yes,
Wow.
Folsom Street pride thing. Anyway, this is what they do. And he's like, yay, grown men peeing on each other in public. That's amazing. So this is this guy. He's everything you said. He has put into place a law against loitering, which makes it really, really much more difficult for officers to go in and find people who are victims of human trafficking. He is pro California being a sanctuary state for trans youth, meaning if your child runs away to California and says, chop it off, I hate my parents, Scott Weiner's like, yes, let's go ahead and do that. That is affirming. This is a terrible guy who's put terrible policies in California, and he is determined to take Nancy Pelosi's seat. And what you may not know is that Christine Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi's daughter, who had been rumored to maybe take her seat, is actually now running for Scott Weiner's seat. So they're doing a whole power consolidation, maintaining the dynasty kind of thing in San Francisco. And it's really quite a shame for the people of that city who have to step over human feces in order to get to work, who see drug addicts just shooting up and wasting their lives on the streets of that city. And this is what Scott Weiner is in favor of. This is what Christine Pelosi is likely in favor of as well.
I mean, this is pretty rough stuff, Liz. But this is what we're talking about. This is how extreme it feels like the Democrats have become. They have doubled down on issues that the American people are like, wait a minute, what is this? This is the trend. This is what we're seeing. And likely if this guy is going to replace Nancy, that's not a good thing. To go back for a second, do you feel like, Liz, that we're ever going to get to the bottom of how Nancy ended up with so much money in her bank account? All the quote-unquote insider trading everybody says. Do you think that we're ever going to get to the bottom of that? Because, I mean, obviously she's leaving, but it kind of feels like she got away with a lot. I mean, she's caused a lot of destruction. The president has talked about this extensively. Anytime he's been asked about Nancy's retirement, He doesn't mince words. He says that she's been an absolute disaster. She's caused a lot of heartache and a lot of hurt around the country. She's done a lot of horrible things for America. We know there's no love lost there because she, I think it was just a week ago, called him a vile creature, a monster, so to speak, about President Trump.
And the worst thing that exists on planet Earth.
Yes. So, I mean, listen, I don't know how effective she was, but it really does to me signal whenever Nancy Pelosi, who, I mean, man, she was kind of the face of the party for a long time, when she's done, it seems like this whole new crop of crazies are going to come in right behind. This would suggest it.
Yeah, I'm stuck on the peeing. I'm sorry. I guess
it's really a lot.
This is it.
Why would you want to do that? What are we doing? Why would anyone do that? Is that some like sex kink thing? What is that? You do it in public?
These are the people who are trying to push furries as well. I mean, there's like some furry running for Congress or something. I just saw the headline. This is what they want, and they want to consolidate power, and they're never going to apologize for being Marxists because they're into it.
Yeah, it's wild stuff. Look, here's the good news. The good news is that currently we have a year until the midterm elections. We got to start thinking about these kind of people. This isn't just about, Donald Trump and Republicans maintaining power. We want to keep crazy people from assuming these offices because they can do damage. They can cause problems all across this country. With one vote, it really does matter. Before we go, though, I really want to talk about James Comey. This guy, I mean, I got a lot of things to say about him, 8647 and all. Not very nice, Comey. But apparently there was a new filing that Lindsay Halligan, who is kind of running point on this prosecution against Comey, put out. Apparently there were notes that were found. You might remember there was a burn bag that Kash Patel found, several of them, I think, in some hidden area of the FBI offices when he took over as FBI director. Apparently he found some notes that Comey had written. And in these notes, he says in his own words, he talks about, quote, HRC plan to tie Trump to Russia. So, I mean, this is his own handwriting, Libby. This was in a burn bag. Why would you want that in a burn bag? Why wouldn't you want to share that with the American public? It's just more evidence that we continue to find that proves what an actual hoax the Russia collusion hoax really was. We've all said it from the beginning. There are textbooks right now in the United States of America in public schools that say the reason Donald Trump won in 2016 was because he colluded with Russia. People like James Comey, who were supposed to be protecting our citizens as FBI director, did the opposite. And they literally did something that I think is rather treasonous to America. This is not what our people should have been doing. Yet we get more and more evidence every single day that that's indeed what was happening. He knew about it. He knew that Hillary was behind it. He knew her campaign was behind it. And yet he allowed the lie that Donald Trump colluded with Russia just to run rampant and actually perpetuated it in so many different ways.
Yeah, it is still rather shocking, though, isn't it? I mean, the opposition campaign, the Democrat campaign for Hillary Clinton, concocted this whole thing, this whole Russia collusion hoax. They pushed it on the American people. They had James Comey's help. I mean, that's crazy, too, that he knew about this and he didn't put a stop to it. I mean, maybe he thought that his whole email thing at the time was going to, be the thing that really worked. I don't know. But yeah, I find it really surprising still, I guess, because I still have faith in this nation and I still have faith that our federal government can operate properly, that I find it surprising that this is what the opposition candidates would do, and that this was known and there was no stop put to it. And I do think that the Trump derangement syndrome is so extreme that people think they are justified in going after his supporters, in going after his political party, in going after the man himself, because they have this weird idea that the ends justify the means in this case. And it makes no sense, because when you then take a look, take the name off, right? And you just take a look at the policies and the impact for our nation, it's pretty much all good stuff. I mean, you can quibble here and there with policy or whatever, but like none of it's fascist. It's all just pro-America good stuff. Close the border, no more illegal immigration, like helping American workers, investment in this country by foreign companies. That's just all good stuff,
Yeah.
So and when you confront an anti-Trump person with what do you think is fascist, they literally can't tell you anything.
Well, they
They
don't even
have
know what
no
that means.
idea.
They don't know
They
what
don't
it
even
means.
know what they're talking about.
Yeah,
They
of
don't know what they
course.
think. They just think what they've been told, and they just say it, and they have no idea.
Yeah.
It's infuriating. And I bet Comey would be the same if you ask him. I bet he doesn't know either.
None of them know. It really is. I mean, we joke about the term Trump derangement syndrome, Liz, but it really does feel like a sickness. Like once rational, reasonable people are so blinded by one person that they have been told to hate and to do everything to stop, that they actually can't be reasonable. They can't be rational. They can't even, as Libby just pointed out, a lot of these great things the president has done, they can't even acknowledge them, not in the least. And, to me, I look at my father-in-law, and man, he has given up so much. He was literally willing to do anything for this country. He was willing to go to jail. He was willing to put his own life on the line. We've seen that happen twice now. He was willing to do any and everything. And the fact that he's back in the White House now, the fact that he has made this incredible comeback, that it does feel like he's fully on offense, it's a totally different feeling than the first administration, is all great. But these kind of people can't get off without some consequence. I'm sorry. This stuff is absolute hell that we had to go through. And it wasn't just my father-in-law. It wasn't just our family. Liz, you know this better than anyone, having been part of the 2016 campaign. There were people whose lives were absolutely destroyed, ripped apart. They had to fund, getting lawyers for themselves and legal advice that they couldn't afford. These are campaign staffers for what? Because these people lied. It was all a hoax from the beginning. They all knew it. And now somebody, I'm sorry, has to be accountable at the end of the day for this.
No, I 100% agree. I don't even know if I'm allowed to say this. We're still getting subpoenas to our door for things that have happened because we worked for Donald Trump for the last 10 years. It is nonstop. I've seen some really, really incredible people. We've been lucky enough to not had, to leave, but I've seen a lot of incredible people literally have to walk away because they couldn't afford basic legal bills and were just too terrified to stick around because they didn't know what the system was going to do to them. I mean, these are classic, Soviet Union tactics that I wouldn't even recognize if my parents hadn't fled from that and explained it to me as it was happening to our own family, as it was happening to your family and to the president. But, I mean, when it comes to Comey, this is a man who, he politicized the highest federal law enforcement office, the highest law enforcement office in the land. I mean, he literally politicized it because he hated Donald Trump so much, and more importantly, because he was convinced he was going to get away with it. Everything that they did, either, releasing Hillary's emails or attacking Donald Trump or making up this entire hoax, he believed Donald Trump was still going to lose. There was no chance that he could win because they believed their own lies that they feed to themselves. It was impossible. The American people got behind this man, so they were going to get away with everything, and they didn't. They didn't in 2016, and they didn't again after everything they put Donald Trump through, which, by the way, made 2016 look like nothing. But the reality is they cannot get away with it, or our country will have nothing, because every administration will know what happened before this and that they didn't stand up and do something for the American people. The amount of people that have suffered because of this, that are still suffering because these people, these monsters, put out lies. Ruined families, ruined lives, ruined people's jobs, ruined people's... I can't even tell you how many people I know that won't speak to me anymore, who lost friends, who lost money, who lost relatives because people convinced them that Donald Trump was this big bad man. And the reality is the only people that they hurt were the people of this country. Donald Trump ended up back in the Oval Office, not just the first time, but again, the second time. He came back from absolutely everything. Being shot in the head, which I don't even think that one I don't know if they planned. But he literally came back from being shot in the head. He beat all of them. He is a walking miracle. We are all walking miracles because we came back from what they threw at us. But the reality is history books right now might be talking about the Russia collusion hoax. The next ones are going to be talking about this and everything they put Donald Trump through, and that America stood back and let it happen. And we have to rewrite those history books. People realize what America went through, what people tried to turn America into, and what folks like Donald Trump kept from ever happening again.
Amen to that. I'm banking on us putting all the light in the dark places, making sure it is all out over the next 3 years. We've already seen it start. It has to continue, because if we don't learn from history. We are doomed to repeat it. We got to learn from this. We can never see anything like this happen to any person ever again in the United States. It's absolutely crazy. Libby and Liz, as always, you guys are great. Thank you so much for joining us. To everybody at home, make sure you like, subscribe, share, and follow. We'll see you back here next time for more of The Right View. And I won't back down. Hey, baby.